Real-world Arizona transaction. Scenarios. Identifying reporting triggers, putting the three-part trigger together. By this point, you understand the three-part framework that determines whether reporting may be required under the 2026 FinCEN Real Estate Reporting Rule. First, the transaction must involve covered residential property. Second, the buyer must be a covered legal entity. Third, the transaction must lack federally regulated institutional mortgage financing. When these three elements exist together, reporting may be required. This section brings theory into practice using real-world Arizona transaction examples. Scenario 1. Scottsdale short-term rental investor. An out-of-state investor forms Desert Lux Holdings LLC in Arizona. The LLC purchases a Scottsdale condominium for $1.2 million. Funds are wired directly from the LLC's account. No lender is involved. Analysis begins with property type. The condo is residential property. That satisfies the first element. The buyer is an LLC, which qualifies as a covered legal entity. That satisfies the second element. There is no federally regulated mortgage lender involved. That satisfies the third element. All three components are present. Reporting is likely required. This is one of the most common investor structures in Arizona's short-term rental market. Scenario 2. Gilbert conventional loan. A buyer forms Sun Valley Rentals LLC. The LLC purchases a single-family home in Gilbert. The buyer obtains a 30-year conventional mortgage from Wells Fargo. The property is residential. The buyer is a legal entity. However, a federally regulated institutional lender is involved. Wells Fargo operates under strict anti-money laundering requirements pursuant to the Bank Secrecy Act. Because institutional financing provides federal oversight, additional reporting under this rule may not be required. This scenario illustrates how financing structure can change the compliance outcome, even when property and entity elements are present. Scenario 3. Phoenix seller. Carryback. An LLC purchases a 3-bedroom rental property in Phoenix. The seller agrees to carry back a note for 80% of the purchase price. No bank participates in the transaction. The property is residential. The buyer is a covered legal entity. There is no federally regulated institutional lender. Seller carryback financing does not substitute for institutional AML oversight. Potential reporting is required. Arizona's strong seller carryback culture makes this scenario especially relevant for investor-heavy brokerages. Scenario 4. Assignment to LLC before closing and individual contracts to purchase a Mesa property. 2 days before closing, the buyer assigns the contract to Desert Equity Investments LLC. The LLC closes with cash. The controlling factor is the identity of the buyer at closing. The property is residential. The buyer at closing is an LLC. There is no institutional lender. Likely reporting is required. Wholesale and assignment-heavy markets must monitor buyer changes carefully. Structure changes immediately before closing can alter compliance obligations. Scenario 5. Probate sale to individual. A property in Chandler is sold through probate. The buyer is an individual purchasing in their personal name with cash. The property is residential. However, the buyer is not a legal entity. The purchaser is a natural person. Under the entity-based trigger framework, reporting is likely not required. Probate status alone does not activate reporting. Scenario 6. Foreign beneficial owner through Arizona LLC. A foreign national forms Arizona Investment Properties LLC. The LLC purchases a residential property in Paradise Valley using private foreign financing. The property is residential. The buyer is a legal entity. Financing is non-institutional. Likely reporting is required. The rule is specifically designed to identify ultimate beneficial owners behind layered domestic entities, including foreign ownership interests. Scenario 7. Duplex purchase with hard money. An LLC purchases a duplex in Tucson using a 6-month hard money loan from a private lending group. The duplex qualifies as residential property under the 1 to 4 unit threshold. The buyer is an LLC. The financing is private hard money, not federally regulated institutional financing. Potential reporting is required. Arizona's active fix and flip market makes this scenario common. What agents should do in these situations? Agents must recognize triggers early. Early awareness prevents closing delays and client confusion. When entity ownership and non-bank financing intersect, agents should notify escrow or the settlement agent and set professional expectations with the client. Agents must never advise clients on structuring transactions to avoid reporting requirements. They must never suggest ownership workarounds designed to conceal beneficial ownership. The correct professional language is neutral and compliance-focused. For example, because the buyer is purchasing through an entity without traditional bank financing, the settlement agent may need to collect beneficial ownership information under federal law. Clear, professional, compliant. Arizona broker. Supervision reminder. Under AAC R428-1103, designated brokers must supervise the activities of salespersons and associate brokers. If a brokerage frequently handles investor assignments, cash LLC purchases, and private financing transactions, agent training is part of reasonable supervision. Under ARS, paragraph 32-2153, dishonest dealings or substantial misrepresentation can result in disciplinary action. Intentionally structuring transactions to evade federal reporting could create significant regulatory exposure. Most agents will never encounter enforcement action. However, ignorance is not a defense to supervision responsibilities. Chapter 2. Summary. In Chapter 2, you defined covered residential property. You identified what qualifies as a covered legal entity. You examined financing structures that trigger reporting. You analyzed real-world Arizona transaction scenarios to apply the three-part trigger framework. You now possess a practical method to identify when reporting may be required. In Chapter 3, we will examine beneficial ownership information, what must be collected, who qualifies as a beneficial owner, and why accurate disclosure is central to the federal transparency framework.